In today's video, this kit becomes this. Let's go! Hey everyone, I'm Chris with Dream Studios. I am back with another video. This time we're doing a paint up tutorial. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's get to it. This is a physical kit. This is also available as a 3D printable STL file set. When you get a physical kit from me, comes with a display placard. People don't know about this. This comes with this. There's a backing on this that you peel off. That is for display, an optional piece. Comes with the turret itself. This is a resin cast piece. So instead of 3D printing, because this would take, I think this is like a 4-day print, this is a casting. I do a little bit of a cleanup here on this edge. There's a little bit of a seam line on that mold, so I do clean up on you, for you, before that goes into a box. It includes this little chip that lives right here. It includes this glorious quad cannon. This is a 3D printed, resin 3D printed part. Just a beautiful piece. The canopy, that's going to live right here in the center. This is the mount arm for the cannon. And this is the mount for that whole cannon assembly. And there's a little nest right here. That's going to live right there. And that is it. This kit is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a little, I think it's from a McLaren Tamiya kit. Side detail right here on the side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts. 7 if you include this gorgeous display plaque. The paint I'm using to base coat these is Heirloom White, made by Rust-Oleum. This is the 2X brand. This is not the final color. This is the base color. I don't want to start with this resin white, so I'm just going to give this a real light coat so it dries quickly. You'll see me painting 2 of these simultaneously. One's for me, one is for a client. This acrylic laser cut piece will have protective paper backing, at least on one side, sometimes both sides. So just peel off that backing paper and we are ready to paint. Alright, all my parts have been curing outside for a few hours. We've got a really nice 75-degree California day today. And I'm seeing that I need to do a little bit of cleanup. It was really hard to see when these parts were in their natural color that I've got a little bit of cleanup to get rid of the little standoff support areas. Sometimes leave a little bit of a raised area. That's really easy to knock off. Under the guns, when this 3D prints, I print this leaning up like this. So hard to see until it's this lighter color, but I had to do a little bit of sanding under here just to get that ready for final paint. And then on this, there was just a couple little spots here. I ran this paper across the inside a little bit. Just a couple little spots here and there. And then you can go ahead and finish with a 500 grit polishing paper to take these all the way smooth. There is one piece of prep work we need to do before we put the final coat of paint on these, and that is to drill out for pins on the cannon. So I'm going to take this cannon. There's already an indication there of a hole. We're going to finish it through. We're also going to continue on this piece here. This one I already pre-did a little bit. But yeah, you want to go ahead and drill out the corresponding pinhole here. And that will allow later, when these are fully painted, to insert a brass pin, and we can connect these with that brass pin. And we end up with an articulating cannon. The airbrush is my favorite go-to airbrush. It's my Go Cheer high capacity, high volume. These will spray really fast with this airbrush. Later, I'll switch to my Pache or my Iwata. My main color is Archive X Reefer White. These are all Archive X paints. I've got a gray, the ILM Concrete, Dark Lark, Earth. I've got my Engine Black, a Rust color. I busted out a couple other colors. I've got Reefer Gray, 1975 Depot Buff, and Boxcar Red. Boy, this uses a lot of colors. And guys, I am no expert on the Falcon. I defer to guys like John Simmons, Andy Preston. Oh gosh, I'm sorry if I can't remember your other names. Sean Sides. These guys are amazing at the Falcon. So I'm going to do my best. But here we go. I'm starting out with the right paints. Alright, this is my Go Cheer airbrush. I'm going to show you the coverage on this. I get a lot of coverage real quick. See that? Just all that, just in a couple seconds. So, it's a high volume, high velocity brush. Really like using it. And since we have a base coat that's not completely unlike our finished coat, this is going to take much less paint. So I'm actually going to go ahead and hold this at the barrel. And you'll see that we get to that Reefer White finish really fast. This is the Heirloom White that I was showing you at the beginning of this tutorial. And this one here is the Reefer White. So Reefer White, Heirloom White. Very similar. But this one's much cooler. This is a little bit warmer. The Heirloom White warmer. This, it's just that really beautiful off-white color. Okay, that's what we're going for right here. You know, if you don't have Reefer White also, if you don't have the Archive X paints, you can mimic this color with Tamiya flat white mixed with like 1 part of Tamiya deck tan. It yields a very similar result. For these canopies, we're going with an entirely different kind of gray mix, a light gray mix. And these won't look a whole lot different right now, but once we start weathering, and once this all starts getting washes and layers, you'll definitely be able to tell the color value difference. So anyways, I'm going to make sure I get all the spokes with this different color gray. See if we can tell the difference here. See if we can see. Yep, you can see that difference. Reefer White, light gray. We can see here from this sample paint up that we need to mask this panel, and this panel, and they are all base colored gray. Bit of a lighter gray here, and a little bit of a darker gray here. This is going to be masked. We're going to do a silicone paint mask out for chips, but I'll show you that as we go. So the nice thing about building 2 is I've already masked this guy. So I've got this panel masked here, this one, and this one. Gray, gray, gray. But before we do that, we're going to do a little bit of rubber masking on all these panels, because if you notice, we've got some chipping that shows through to the reefer white. All this, any of these white sections, we're going to use your favorite mask. I like to use silicone rubber, but there's latex masking solutions you can use. There's putty masking solutions. So you can see what we're doing here. We're applying our rubber masking before we paint this gray to reveal all of this. And there's a couple little white chips here. There's some white chipping here. Alright, I am looking at my reference shots here as I go. And I'm just using a small little brush here just to start introducing these little random spots where the white will show through. And you can be as anal as you want, or you can just do it real rough and quick. I'm just going to go in between here. I can see there's some white chipping here. I'm not going to go too crazy with this. Down here, there's a big missing spot. I can use this. This is a sculpting tool. It's a silicone tipped tool. And there's a bunch of little fine things over here. Alright, that might be enough for him. Then I'll switch over to this panel. And this one has a lot of missing paint here in this corner. Big time chipping here. Alright, so I'm just going to go around this and mask off where I want that white paint to shine through. I'm ready for my reefer gray for these two panels. Okay, the gray on here is a touch darker. This will ultimately be covered up with that boxcar red color. Now we're masking for the dark gray that's going to appear through the red color that goes on here. So again, looking at my reference shots, I'm using a little micro brush this time to apply my masking solution. So wherever I see gray coming through the paint, that's where I'm going with this mask. I'm putting this little chip on here just for a little bit of reference. Okay, I see a little gray that's going to be showing through over here. A bit here. A couple spots here. A little bit over here on this edge. Not too much. Real subtle. Now we've finished that panel with boxcar red. If you don't have these Archive X paints, you can mix a little bit of brown with red. Here's our result after having taken off all our masking, all of our rubber masking material. So we've got a couple layers here We've got that gray. We've got the reefer white undercoat. That's a darker gray chipping. Over here, we've got our reefer white showing through the gray panels. Looking pretty good. And don't worry if you're not crazy about how it's looking. This is going to go through a lot of filtering. This is going to lighten up with overspray and filters. So there is one more panel before we start assembling that we need to mask. That is this guy. This panel right here. And you can see from the ref that we've got this kind of earthy, rusty, kind of earthy, warm tones going on. I'll be using 1965 Earth and 1975 Depot Buff. Here we've got the Earth and a little Depot Buff mixed into that. I've got a side batch that's a little rustier, and I'm going to put this on here. This is thinned down a lot. So I'm looking at my reference, and I'm seeing this color. It's kind of splotchy over here. I've got cotton buds standing by, so if something comes on too thick, or if I want to readjust something, I can just get my little cotton bud out. But real subtly, going over these areas, kind of on the edges. See a lot of staining over here, and basically this is a stain. You are not using any kind of opaque paint at this point. This is just a stain. There's a couple colors going on. It's a little more opaque over here. Looking good. I'm going to start doing some assembly. I'm going to press fit this canopy in place. I want to make sure that I'm lined up front and back. I'm going to press that guy into position. It's such a tight fit that I don't think that even needs adhesive. Yep, looking good. I got my spokes up and down. This chip I will glue right there. This I assembled off camera. I'm not going to attach this yet. I'm going to do a round of weathering on this before this goes on. But I've got this pinned. Just got a brass pin in here. So he is nice. He rotates that way too in the end. And by the way, this is set up with a little indent here. I engineered an indent into that part, so will nest in here right on top of that canopy. But we're not going that far yet. I'm going to do a weathering pass on this first. You'll notice that there's these black blast marks here. They're up here, here and there. I'm going to follow this reference and introduce those spots, those little blast points to these turrets. If you look really closely at the reference pictures, you see a little bit of this red color, a little bit more vibrant. So I mixed a little bit of true red into the boxcar red, and I'm going to get a few of these little red spots on the canopy. Before I go into my first weathering pass, I'll be using dark lark to do some streaking and some general weathering. There's some water staining happening on this back panel, so I'm going to apply my rubber masking here just as a block, because we got some bright areas shining through up here, and I see a little bit here, a little here, and that's just going to break up that paint a tiny bit. This will be oversprayed quite a bit, so it'll be a subtle breakup of color, but that right there, so when I do my streaks and I peel that rubber back off, I'll have a little bit of that light staining happening here. Now we come alive with weathering. I'm starting with dark lark. I've still got my Gautier airbrush, but I've got the pressure turned down pretty low so I can get some pretty fine little lines. I can pull back and get a wider coverage. I can bring my air pressure down even just a little bit lower. Get a finer line. Okay, so that's the idea. I'm going to start real light. And by the way, off camera, I hit these turrets with crystal clear. So if I mess something up here, I can always rub it off and start again. So if you remember, I've got some masking here. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the weathering. There's a couple streaks that come down here on this panel. Light touch. This is all about subtle layering. I can't say it enough. Subtle layers. I'm going to turn that air pressure up just a bit. Keep that airbrush moving so you can kind of see what's going on here a little bit. I'm going to stop right there. Let's do a little bit of, let's do a little higher pressure, and let's get a little bit of edge weathering. And I'm just going to spend a few minutes kind of going around this, getting some shading happening with this dark lark. So I'm going to stop here at this level, and let's do a little comparison here. By the way, when you set these in, start with the tilt like this, get that edge lined up where it's supposed to be, and then push it down, and don't get your glove stuck on it. And there you go. There is a fit. Almost don't even have to glue that on. I mean, this is a pretty good fit. And then this guy's got good tension too. I can kind of position him. He'll lose that after a while, but it's supposed to be flat down like this anyways. Okay, so there is a look at before and after on just one pass of weathering. We've got 12 more to go. I have a darker gray loaded in. Not black yet, but getting darker. And I'm going to add a little more contrast to the base of this disc. So I'm going to come under here, just hit down here. And wherever I feel like it needs a bit more contrast, I might just spray it from a distance. actually, I'm not going to worry about getting too dark in some areas because we're going to come in here with overspray of our original base coat. One thing I didn't do on camera is I shadowed inside of that lip from underneath, just to give it a little more contrast when you're looking down from inside. If you see that edge, a little bit darker in there. Don't forget to hit these laser cut McLaren parts a little bit. Okay, I have switched over to my Iwata Eclipse airbrush. This gives me a bit more finer control. Let's see if I can show you. Those are my previous little patterns. So with this guy, with the Eclipse, I'm able to get in really tiny. I can do, like, with this double action, I can get in really super fine. I can do a nice wide spray. But the main point of this is I can do just faint little areas. I can press down harder and do streaks. So I'm going to come in here and we are going to put halos around some of these blast spots. See if I can get this in frame. So I'm going to do a little bit of haloing. If you can see this happening. Just around these blast spots. Here. Here. A little bit more here. And these others don't really have that. I like the look of this. I might do another one over here. It's kind of it's a good look to have that dark spot and then a nice little dark halo around it. Nice effect. Okay, then I'm going to open up my valve here and introduce a little bit of streaking. Just cover up that water spot a little bit, and then I think I'll do a couple streaks. And it looks to me like we need to change colors to a warmer, earthy brown grime color. I can see here these two little guys have a little bit of darkness on them. So with my Iwata, I can, there you go, just give them a little bit, give a little taste of dark. And then maybe around the edges, since I have this finer control, I can come in, maybe get a little bit more contrast action there. But yeah, that little staining, that little masking I did there created that little color breakup, which I really like. Alright guys, I am loving how this is going together. I've got the quad cannon and its base temporarily fitted to the body. I can take that off later if I wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and fit this McLaren piece here, and loving the Iwata Eclipse. This is so worth the money. I rarely use it, but for a project like this, when you're doing little halo areas, super controlled areas, it's so worth the money. We are on to our final 4 or 5 passes of weathering. Let me introduce you to the palette we'll be using for the rest of this. I've got a brownish grime. I have a rusty earth color. These are all warm colors. And more of that earth buff, that Archive X earth color. So that is what we're using to warm these guys up. I'm going to start by introducing a little bit of shading across the bottom edge, a little bit on the top. Then we're going to be doing a little more masking and staining. A little bit here on the back. I'm switching now to my brown grime. You can see some streaking here. Streaking that goes across here. Kind of brownish here. Big streak here. Let's get that. My final round on this will be an overspray of our original Reefer White. So I can always come back, lighten it up if I feel like it got too dark. Last layer with this airbrush for right now is this super rusty color. Still have some of that brown in here, just waiting for it to get rusty. There we go. Okay, so this is a rusty, just a little bit, just kiss it here and there. We'll go back in manually and get some rust where it needs to be. There's a lot of rust on this panel, but that's going to be done the old-fashioned way. Looking at my reference shots, I've got some rust washes. Well, I shouldn't say rust. It's actually more of that earth buff color, that warm tone. Kind of rusty-ish, earthy here, very subtle. Across here, subtle. Little bit here, and a tiny bit on this edge. And to me, it doesn't look like it wraps over the edge, so I'm going to apply a mask all the way across this edge. It's very, very, very thin down. So I know this panel gets a little bit of this earthy color. As you can see, this is just a stain. Very, very subtle here. Very subtle here. And I can move that paint around with a cotton bud. Okay, this is my second to last filter on this. Boy, I've been going on this for a long time, right? This is a neutral gray, kind of a medium gray. Any areas that I feel like I went too far, if I went too dark, too contrasty, I could knock it down with a little bit of this neutral gray. This kind of puts a fog over the surface. It's a really cool look. So if I could find an example, I might be a little bit too dark here in this area with that earth buff color. So I'm going to come in with this neutral gray, desaturate that. I think I might be maybe a little too dark over here in these areas, so this neutral gray, I'm going to desaturate. Last layer. This is a return back to basics, back to Reefer White. This will erase, not desaturate, but erase anything you feel got too dark, anything got too excited, like this stripe here got a little too excited there. So I'm going to just kind of go over there and tone her down. That's looking good to me. That's looking good. Looking at some reference shots. I might detone a little bit right there. This area looking good. This area looking good. Boy, I might detone this just a touch. And I might take this guy off. And there's some bright areas on this canopy. So I'm going to Bring back that raw virgin reefer white. Touch that canopy in a few spots. Kind of bright. It's funny that everything is so weathered, but there's some really bright spots on this canopy piece. I'm not seeing that needs any more correction. Boy, that is a dirty piece, isn't it? I think we are done. I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. And in the morning, we'll get this into some better sunlight and take a look at it and wrap this video up. And here we are. I am really happy with these. They might not be perfect. Every little spot, you know, I was trying to be a little bit careful, but I wasn't going insane. So they might not be all the way accurate, perfect blast marks. But yeah, I'm happy with these for a 2-day paint job. I am really liking these. Here's one of the plaques. I'm not sure I'll get to it in this video, but I plan on doing a shadow box for these with an 8x10 glossy photo of the 5-footer on the blue screen stage. It'll be in a nice shadow box with an acrylic cover. I'm not saying this is how you should do yours. I'm just showing you how I did mine. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I hope I was able to maybe teach you something. I hope I was able to inspire. That's the point of my videos. And yeah, really glad this is done. I appreciate your support. Thank you. I'd like to take this moment to thank you for clicking this video. I appreciate your support. Feel free to leave a comment. If you enjoy the content, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.